This is the second in a series of videos discussing the economic collapse, America's road to economic depression. In the last video, we briefly reviewed the post-war economic boom of the 1920s, and we talked about the 6 causes of the Great Depression. Today, this video will cover the first of those 6 causes, Republican domestic and international policies. Republicans did lead our federal government for the duration of the 1920s. 3 Republican presidents and a Republican-controlled Congress set the stage for the economic policy both here at home and abroad. President Coolidge, President of the United States from 1923 to 1929, said quite famously, "The business of America is business." And with that belief in mind, he did pursue, as did his Secretary of Treasury, very conservative pro-business policies, including what we call trickle-down economics, or also known as supply-side economics. There is another video in this playlist that will cover specifically trickle-down economics. The international policy that we pursued in the 1920s was the Dawes Plan, and that is also explored in another video in this playlist. I'm going to back up for a moment to talk about domestic policies. Coolidge's Secretary of the Treasury, wealthy businessman Andrew Mellon, was a key proponent of trickle-down economics. He believed that economic policies that benefited big business and America's wealthiest citizens would eventually benefit all Americans, and that prosperity would, quote, trickle down from the upper class to the middle and lower classes. Mellon argued that if the government provided businesses and wealthy individuals with significant tax cuts, they in turn would reinvest the money in the U.S. economy. For example, a business might use its tax refund to expand its facilities, thereby providing people with jobs and raising their standard of living. Using trickle-down theory as a justification for his policies, Mellon slashed taxes for big businesses and reduced the personal income tax for people who made over $60,000 a year. One corporation, U.S. Steel, received a tax refund of $15 million under this plan. To make up for the loss in government revenues, Mellon cut government expenditures and raised taxes for the middle and lower classes. However, despite Mellon's and other Republicans' projections, wealth did not trickle down to the American worker in any significant way. Instead, corporations devoted their profits to expanding their work facilities, increasing the production of goods, and lining their own pockets. While industrial expansion created some new jobs, the slight growth was offset by business owners' increased reliance on machines rather than people to produce goods. Furthermore, owners kept workers' wages low through the 1920s. In the end, trickle-down economics simply increased the gap between rich and poor. Now, when we think about our international policies, they too favored a conservative approach to the economic problems in Europe. You see, during World War I, the United States had lent over $11 billion to our European allies. After the war, most European nations were in economic ruin, and they could not repay the United States. Those countries appealed to the U.S. government to release them from having to repay the loans. Coolidge's administration found that idea economically imprudent and refused to forgive the debts. Instead, the United States rescheduled the loan payments and began lending to European nations even more money in a misguided attempt to help them repay the original debt. As a result, nations like England and France fell deeper and deeper into debt, and soon began defaulting on their loans. In addition, Republicans imposed high tariffs on imported goods to discourage Americans from buying foreign merchandise and to promote consumer spending on American-made products. Without a substantial market for their goods, European nations had no hope of repaying their loans, nor could they afford to buy American goods or invest in its economy. But until the late 1920s, many Americans were too busy investing in the stock market themselves to care. That concludes this video.